So I'm about to make a wild accusation and guess that you probably are watching this video right now because you A probably think you have a touch of autism or maybe a heaping pile of autism or B you think that you have ADHD. And so my entire mission of this video is to tell you guys my story with getting diagnosed, what caused me to want to get a diagnosis, and some of the warning signs that I had in childhood and even now that caused me to really want a diagnosis here. And I also want to let you guys know that studies have shown that it shows autism and ADHD both show way differently in women, and it's still being studied. Literally, autism wasn't studied in women up until I think it was like only 15 years ago. So just keep that in mind. If you're a guy, you might have different symptoms in this. A lot of them are similar, but socially, especially, it shows up differently in women. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with the warning signs, the warning shots, if you will, that like were really obvious. I feel like that something was going on. But I did grow up in a really tiny town, and some of you might relate to this. And so I learned to mask really well very early on because it wasn't as accepted, I guess, to be different and to act weird. So I learned to cover up my weirdness basically, which I'm learning to unmask now, but um first of all, so these are some signs. First of all, I had extremely high reading levels in school. And this could be for you, it could be like extremely good at math or extremely good at, I don't know, science or something like that. But I was really, really, really good at reading. And I've talked about this in other videos too. But in fifth grade, I was at a college reading level already. And I was also reading some commenters, their comments. One of them said that he actually, like, in the beginning, this is the same thing as me. In the beginning, in like first or second grade, I actually sucked ass at reading, and I had to have a little tutor for like a year, but after that, I was off to the races. And I don't know why that was. I wonder if there was just a difficulty with me starting it and getting it, but once I did, I was like really good at it. I don't know what it was, but and I'll talk about later about my diagnosis, but when I got my IQ test, that's actually one of the things that I'm extremely proficient at, IQ wise, is verbal comprehension, which has to do with reading and everything and understanding people when they talk, which is another reason why it went under the radar for so long, if you happen to also have a high score on this. But second is, I've talked about this too, but being a watcher. So when I was little, compared to the other kids at the playground or at school, I always preferred to watch people interact rather than actually interact with people. Um, and this is the same thing now. Like, I love people watching. I absolutely, yeah, I just love people watching. It's honestly, interacting is a little nerve-wracking in my opinion. It's much better now because I found a way to actually love interacting with people, which is just gaining knowledge. So I find every interaction a way to gain knowledge about something or someone, and that makes it fun for me. But thirdly, in my childhood, I always had trouble with teachers and authority. So I remember specifically, I think it was like third grade, I had this one dude teacher, which he was really strict, and he was just one of those people. And this is a common thing with autistic and ADHD people is people in authority that didn't actually earn their position. It really irks us because we're really based on morals and earning whatever you have. So when you have a teacher that is a bad teacher, treats their kids wrong, just abuses their position of authority, it really bothers us, and it really bothered me as a kid. I remember, like, I got in trouble at the school because I actually got into a little fight with one of my teachers, and I never got along with him because he was one of those guys that just, like, he just wanted everything by the book. Um, he was low key a bully, honestly. Like, he would come over if you were just resting your head on the desk or not really paying attention. He had this hammer that he would come over and literally like crack on your desk to wake you up, and it was so loud. It sounded like a gunshot. It was insane. But that school is very traditional, and they just let shit like that fly all the time. But there's that. I definitely had trouble with that. And then also, if it runs in your family. So my sister and dad are both diagnosed with ADHD, and my sister, she had a lot of allergies when we were. This is another thing. Like ADHD and autistic people usually have a lot of allergies, which I have intolerances to food and stuff. But she had it really, really bad, like so insanely bad that actually one of my parents, my mom's friend, was a preacher, and she actually wanted to get my sister baptized. Like, what is baptized the word? No, not baptized. Oh my gosh, what's it called when someone thinks you're possessed by like a demon? It's whatever that is, like exercise. There we go. Because she had so many allergies and she also had ADHD. So she was just miserable all the time. Like her skin was on fire all the time and we had no idea until she was about 6 or something. So she was having a really really rough time, like tantrums all the time. And so I do think that any problems that I had were kind of like swept under the rug because she, and totally honestly very valid, because she was really struggling in that time, and I'm glad we figured out. She was born with like 36 allergies. We had to we could only eat like what was it? We could only eat bison meat. We couldn't eat hamburger, or we couldn't eat gluten or milk. And that's the thing, like anything that she couldn't eat, the whole household didn't eat, which was pretty awesome actually. I didn't like it at the time, but it was probably good for me for my ADHD and autism too, because going on a good diet really helps. But yeah. So yeah, it was kind of crazy, and I think that's why my symptoms weren't noticed either. But also trouble I had a lot of trouble making friends in school. In the school that I was in, like I said, was very traditional. So there was like two cliques of girls. One was very, very, very popular girls, and the other was my group, which was like the weird kids, I guess you could say. But we all have something. Like we all have like ADHD or something, and so that's another reason why it wasn't like, because we all had the same thing. So it was just normal to all of us to like see each other act in certain weird ways or whatever, because we acted that way too. And so that is another reason why it wasn't like ever brought up. Like there was no red flags. Also, another thing with just how I felt in social situations, I was actually diagnosed with social anxiety during the pandemic, which a lot of autistic and ADHD people get misdiagnosed with stuff. I have, it could just be part of the autism or it could just be OCD, but I do have like contact OCD. Um so I was diagnosed with social anxiety too, and I always just felt like an outsider in social situations. Like when I was in it was just very like a third person view all the time when I was in social situations. Like I would be talking to a group of people and it just felt like I wasn't really there, or I wasn't really part of them, or I just didn't fit in. And that was all the time. Like even I feel like even with my really good friends, sometimes I felt that. So those were just some, there's so much more. There's so much more, but that's just some things that I remembered could have been red flags if they were noticed when I was a kid. So now fast forwarding to about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, when I got my diagnosis. Leading up to the diagnosis, I started thinking about myself and really analyzing myself and my patterns. And that's when I realized that I don't act normal, and I don't like I don't act normal is kind of a bad way to say it, but um the way I do things is different than other people. And I noticed that I had a lot of hard time with school. And I think the reason this all started coming up was because I'm 20, and I moved out of my house at 18, which is because, let's get a little personal here, is because I had a really bad relationship with my mom. And luckily it's much much better now, but I think a lot of the issues we had is because of being untreated for ADHD and autism. I was really overstimulated all the time in that house, because we had a lot of issues. But I don't remember where I was going with that. But yeah, I started thinking about, oh, I remember what I was going with that. because I moved out and now I didn't have the safety blanket of my parents being in the same place, having my rent paid, not having to work a full-time job. I've been working since I was 12, but it's never been full time, like more than 30 hours. And so once that happened and I was kind of just like thrust into the world, my journal almost just fell. But I was kind of thrust into the world on my own, because I got out of that house as soon as I could. I It was really hard for me, I noticed, to manage my life. I had a hard time. I was pretty good with my money, and I think I still am now, but life just was pretty hard, and I was thinking about why it was so hard for me, and especially socially, like making friends and keeping relationships with my friends. I was living with my best friends at the time, and there was a lot of issues that came up with just miscommunication and not understanding body language and not understanding like um the things that all the other people in that house seemed to understand. I was realizing that something was off. So let's see, what else. Leading up to the diagnosis, I strongly suspected that I had ADHD. And it was getting to the point where I was like, you know what, I might as well get a diagnosis. And I was talking to my mom at the time, of this diagnosis, and wanting to see a psychiatrist. And be prepared, if you want to get a diagnosis, your family may not be on board. Um, I didn't even tell my dad. I still haven't told my dad because I do highly value his opinion, and it's really rough, um, to tell your parents about these things. And unfortunately, in the beginning, my mom, I really don't want to diss my mom here, but in the beginning, my mom seemed on board, but I found out later from my family, other family members, that she thought I was faking and like that I was just, it was a bigger problem than it really. I was making it seem like it was a bigger problem than it really was, which is obviously not true. But she luckily, I have good insurance because of her, and she also ended up paying for it. And for us, it cost about a couple $100. So be prepared for that too if you live in the U.S. It's very unfortunate that you have to pay that much, but um, yeah. So going into it, I thought that I had ADHD, and I kind of briefly brought up maybe autism to the psychiatrist, but she I didn't really think it was a big thing. And it started off with us just having therapy. So if you're interested about the process of going to get your diagnosis, this is how it is. So you're gonna walk into the office. The office that I went to was really, really nice, and she was awesome. It started off with just therapy, and then we kind of like we felt each other out to see if like it would be a good way to get a diagnosis like between us. And so I ended up, like, I think it was the second or third session we started. And the autism part is really based on talking. Like, you talk with the psychiatrist, she'll ask you, or he will ask you questions about how did you feel growing up, like in social situations, all the classic stuff. And I also got an IQ test, which I'm not sure is part of the autism assessment, but I got an IQ test, and I ended up learning a lot about myself from the IQ test too, which is a really good thing to get, to know your strengths, especially when you're young, and knowing what field you should go into based on your strengths. So for me, I'm gonna get really personal with you guys. I'm gonna share like exactly what I got on this test. So I got a score of 130 in verbal comprehension. That's not my total IQ. My total IQ is 116, which is above average. It's not crazy, but it's above average. But the 130 is the 98th percentile in verbal comprehension, which means I'm in the top 2% in the world of people who have taken the IQ test. So that means that's exactly why I think it also, my diagnosis went under the radar for so long too, because verbal comprehension is something that people don't stereotypically correlate with people who are autistic. Autistic Usually people assume that autistic people are like bad at conversation. They don't understand you, they can't speak well or whatever. And verbal comprehension means having good verbal comprehension means that you understand all that very well. So, let's see. Also, the reason why I decided to get an assessment and not self-diagnose is because I don't like self-diagnosing, because in my opinion, it helped me a lot to get a professional opinion, because while I do trust my own judgment very well, I know that this person has a PhD in psychiatry, and it just helps kind of reconfirm my suspicions, basically. So let's see. Oh yeah, so a little bit more into like the actual psychiatrist sessions. I don't know why I'm so choppy with my words today, but into the actual psychiatrist sessions, what you can expect is, for me, it was multiple 2-hour sessions. So I think it was like 4 sessions. So it's gonna be about 8 hours spanned out. Some of it, the IQ test part was like she would have like a puzzle on a paper, and then I had a couple of blocks that were all like different shapes and stuff, and I had to make the puzzle from the picture with the blocks. And she would test how long it took and stuff like that. And she, with the verbal comprehension part that she tested me on, she would be like, she asked a bunch of questions, and she would say, what can you tell me wait, can you tell me, there we go, that's English. Can you tell me the similarity between the two words paper and wall, or something like that? And then you would say, oh, they're both objects, or they're usually both white, or something like that. And but I think you had to say it in one word. I think you have to say what they're similar in one word. But anyways, and at the end, she gave me a super thick packet. I think it was like 10 or 11 pages long, of my strengths, my IQ test, what autism means, what my what I need to work on, like stuff like that. And yeah, and I think it was really important for me to get, because that's literally why I'm talking to you guys right now. But it's helped my life in so many ways. I've also been able to help people in my life, now that I know for sure that I like scientifically have a diagnosis. I feel way better in talking to people about it, and also with my friends who suspect that they might be autistic or have ADHD. I'm able to like let them know if their problems are a problem I also have, and it can help them a lot too, and people in your life. So I think that's about it. But if you're wondering, like, if you're asking yourself, should I get an assessment? At the end of the day, it comes down to if it'll help you understand yourself. If you're getting it for someone else, don't do it. It's not worth the money or the time. And yeah, so if you think anything will change by you getting an actual diagnosis from someone with a PhD, then do it. But if you think nothing will change, like if you're gonna find the same accommodate, you don't need accommodations or anything, or you're gonna be living the same way with or without a diagnosis, then don't get it, and you're totally good. Yeah, you definitely don't need it if you don't want it. So yeah, that's my diagnosis story. Um, if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I probably missed something somewhere. But thanks for watching, and as always, wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a great day or night or week or whatever it is. And thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully.